My fancy coffee maker died a couple of weeks ago. Well, it started to die, began making the sounds of inevitability. The kind that, were it a person, we would pretend not to hear in front of it and then whisper through concerned faces about when it left the room. Instead, I looked across the room at it, gaze half horror and half anger. Please not today. This is not the day to require I prop myself atop my own chemical abilities to be alert. It sputtered and coughed through several mornings, while I tried not to listen from the next room, knowing I couldn't afford to replace it, muttering under my breath about the audacity of dying before your time. It is not Christmas. This is significant because a mother's time is Christmas, the time when money is spent not only on the wants and needs of others, when she too is allowed to want and need. But it is not Christmas. And the mornings between then and now, the necessarily caffeinated mornings, stand far too many, an advancing army chanting, "You know you can't do this alone." And so, it dies. I think the thing fancy coffee makers do best is die conveniently, so you can feel less bad about coveting their younger siblings, so much fresher, faster, prettier. It is still not Christmas. And so I borrow a small, old-fashioned machine, so unfancy that it will certainly outlive me. The morning I set it up, I am transformed by remembered ritual, to a time when being fancy meant a coffee maker that belonged to me, because I was an adult. I had places to be in the morning, important adult places. I had coffee filters on my grocery list, and only mature adult people had coffee filters on their grocery list. Good coffee was whatever I had, especially if it wasn't expired, and if I stopped checking, then it was never expired. I turn the machine on, and that sound washes over me. I can hear the sound of my slummy efficiency. I could walk the length of it in 14 steps, which I guess was pretty efficient. I hear the sound of my stomach growling as I wait for the coffee to be ready. The relief that I work that day, and by late morning I would have enough tips to buy something to eat. That my coworker, no less broke but definitely less hungry, would accidentally give me $2 extra when the tips were divided. I would pretend not to notice, and he would never comment that I started tying my belt because I couldn't make it smell enough anymore. I hear the sound of my cat who bore the weight of my loneliness, my broken heart, and empty wallet, and so she ate, while I went largely hungry, because she never judged my foolishness to my face. If you've never loved a cat, I wonder if you've ever felt truly alone. Dogs are made to keep loneliness at bay, but cats sit with you in it. They know you can't be saved from it, but they keep you from waiting alone. I hear the silence of the places I lived alone, which felt like luxury and jail all at once. For I crave the freedom of being by myself, but too quickly get lost to it. I wander too far, too fast, until I'm not sure I want to leave. I hear the sound of the movie rental clerk as her voice changed from customer service to friendly recognition to sadness, as she exercised her small authority to clear my late fees and offer me pretend discounts at the realization that I was filling my too quiet life with the voices of familiar strangers. I hear the goodbye of the first I loved that echoed in that too small turned suddenly too big apartment for weeks. The sound of the apartment where I was gifted a new coffee maker, the second least expensive model, which felt like an extravagance much too good for the coffee I put into it. I hear the sound of my worried thoughts changing from, "Can I pay my bills this month?" to, "Will I always be alone? Will anyone see this mess and not look at me like work?" I remember that no one I've ever loved has shared my coffee with me, that this ritual born of aloneness has remained a solitary one, that the very allure of my dying fancy coffee maker was that it excelled in the making of coffee for one, forgiveness for the 2-inch stain at the bottom of a glass carafe I was never able to allow its full potential. This borrowed machine will dutifully run for the remaining weeks until it is Christmas. and the one who spins the plates that make 4 lives possible is allowed a guilt-free, indulged necessity. A fancier machine will appear in its place to make better, easier, smaller amounts, and those sounds and the struggles they soundtrack will recede once more. I don't need to hear them to remember. Each left a scar I carefully avoid in the shower. The mountain climber will, if you know enough to look, stand atop their conquest and look forward. Down to, yes, but at the spaces not yet seen and felt, at the side they did not leave their blood upon, because the scabs remember for us.